guys that are legends because the number retired. Like in the team in Greece, how my number retired. Maybe in 15 years, 20 years, maybe my number is up there next to Kareem, Oscar Robinson. I hope I'm there.
And obviously, I wanted to get the job done. But that's my stubborn side. Like, it's easy to go somewhere and go and win a championship with somebody else. It's easy. I could go. I don't put anybody in the spot, but I could go to a super team and just do my part and win a championship. Still won. But this is the hard way to do it, and this is the way I chose to do it. And we did it. We did it, man.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the latest episode of The Layup.Line. My name is Dolos, and I want to start this by saying a huge congratulations to the 2021 NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to start work on a video on the finals runner-up, the Phoenix Suns, for next week, but today we're talking strictly about the champions. It is only right that I start this by opening up myself for embarrassment because I was not a Milwaukee Bucks believer. I doubted just about everyone in the organization, from the front office to the coaching to the roster outside of Giannis. I was critical of Middleton as a number 2, and I thought that Jrue Holiday was completely overrated as a third option. But when players prove you wrong, it forces you to change the way you view them. The Bucks don't have to win another title or be a dynasty. They won this year, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. Their first franchise title in 50 years. A franchise title justifies all of the bad years. It validates the team's hard work and the decision making that they made, and it numbs every loss that happened on the way to this road. To a certain degree, the Bucks as a franchise was at a crossroads last offseason. Milwaukee was coming off a pretty embarrassing 5-game playoff exit to the Heat, and there was immense anxiety about Giannis' contract extension decision. There was legitimate pressure on the front office and the coaching staff to adjust the roster and play style to better fit the playoffs. Giannis has stressed this in his speech, but he had the ability to ask out in the offseason. He could have forced the trade to join another star and had an easier road to success. This isn't meant to be a knock on any specific player who has requested a trade or left the team in free agency, because that makes sense too. As players, their careers and legacies are greatly impacted by their GMs and coaches who manage the rosters around them. I'm happy that the player empowerment era has led to the point where NBA players have a voice in those decisions, but we've also seen how difficult it is to just trust your career in the hands of an organization simply because they drafted you. What Giannis accomplished was rare. It is a literal storybook Hollywood movie of an immigrant from a poor background rising to the highest heights of professional sport. A weird thing that's happened in this social media era is the constant rewriting of history to label teams super teams. It happened with the pre-KD Warriors, and some people are now trying to push the same thing about the 2020 Lakers and even this 2021 Bucks team. But let me explain why that is so ridiculous. The Bucks' second best player is Chris Middleton, who is a very good player. Don't get me wrong about that. But he's a player who has 2 All-Star appearances in his 9 NBA seasons. He's not got a single All-NBA selection, which is some anecdotal evidence that he's more of a fringe top 15 player. The third best player on Milwaukee is Jrue Holiday, who is also, again, very good. He's an all-world, elite, all-league defender, but he has 1 All-Star appearance that was from almost a decade ago. So, no offense to these other guys, but on their best day, they have an argument to be maybe top 10, top 15 players in the league. The finals MVP, on the other hand, he averaged 30 points on a run to the championship. It's time that Giannis gets his respect. Fans and media tried to embarrass him every time he got to the free throw line, and despite this all-time run, one of the loudest narratives going on during the playoffs was that he is not a real hooper and he has no skill. Is Giannis a player that relies on his size and strength advantages? Yes. Athleticism and size are more important to his game than dribble moves or jump shooting, so I totally agree with the idea that Giannis would not be the same player if he was shorter. But guess what? There isn't a defensive scheme that a team can run that will make Giannis a 6'6" wing. So you better make sure that your team has the personnel to build a wall of defenders. He bends the game, his gravity on drives forces help, and his above average passing for the position sets up his teammates for good looks. He is not the traditional scorer by any means. You know exactly what spot he wants to get to on the floor, but it just doesn't matter because you're not going to be able to stop him. He is a combination of Grant Hill and Shaquille O'Neal. And if you don't like that, you kind of just don't like NBA basketball. Pivoting into Giannis's teammates though, I have been a serious Middleton and Holiday doubter. I think there is some nuance that we can have here in these discussions because they didn't exactly show up every playoff game, so I have some questions about next season and moving forward, how this core continues to remain competitive. But like I said, none of that matters when you're holding up the title. I previously expressed some disappointment when Giannis signed his extension with the Bucks. And that wasn't because I thought that they were going to be a bad team, but as a fan of Giannis, I just really wanted him someplace where he would have a really good chance to repeat or a good chance to be part of a dynasty. Now that they actually got to this title, maybe it's just the recency bias of it, but I feel less that way. The Bucks could end up having traded a future All-Star with one of the picks in that Jrue Holiday deal, but they won't care about that because they got this 2021 title. It's the teams that go all in and don't win that get filled with regrets or what ifs. Congratulations to Chris Middleton and to Jrue Holiday, who showed that they could be second and third options on the biggest stage despite all of the doubt that they were receiving. Not that I still don't have my concerns or dislikes, but I want to say that NBA analysis gets very polarizing based on what the results are. For just kind of a quick example of what I mean by that, let's look at Coach Budenholzer. He was on the hot seat all year, and the discussions about his job security were coming up almost every game. Bud's deservedly going to keep his job, and he has changed his perception in the league for adjusting enough to finally win as a head coach. So now when we talk about Coach Budenholzer, the conversations will highlight the titles in San Antonio when he was an assistant. The media will talk about the numerous great regular seasons he had as something that was building up to this. But there is a world where Kevin Durant's foot is behind the three in that Game 7 and the Bucks are eliminated, and then I think the entire narrative around Coach Bud is that he's just awful and he won't ever adjust. So this is just to make the point that I think we need to do a better job of landing in the middle sometimes on these takes, because when they're playing at the highest level, there are good coaches and good players on both sides, and the winner and loser is based on a combination of what either side is doing right or wrong. All that said, Coach Bud deserves his props for how he handled rotations and for constantly adjusting their defense. The front office deserves their props for recognizing the previous season's roster weaknesses and making transactions in and out of the season to continue upgrading the roster. Finally, and most importantly, the 2021 Milwaukee Bucks players deserve their props for an all-time playoff run and some unforgettable finals moments. This season wasn't always easy. It wasn't even always enjoyable in my opinion, given the injuries and pandemic situation around the league. But I have a feeling basketball fans won't be able to stop talking about how this season went for a very long time. That's all I have for you today in this one. Thank you if you made it to the end. Do me a favor and subscribe so you can stay notified about new videos coming out on the channel. I've been doing a series around the rebuilding timeline of the Oklahoma City Thunder, which has been extremely fun to continue. I also do a Lakers podcast with my homie Rose, but all the links for that stuff will be in the description. I want to thank you one more time for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.
This is my mom right here. Started from the bottom, now we here.